we're looking at Unit 3, Lesson 2, Solving Absolute Value Inequalities. Since we are talking about inequalities, it's a nice little refresher on inequalities. If I am solving an inequality, it works exactly like if I were solving a regular equation. So let's say I have negative 2x plus 3 is greater than 9. My goal is to get x all by itself, so it's just a refresher on solving inequalities. So just like in an equation, I would subtract 3 from both sides. I get negative 2x is greater than 6. Now the difference here, in order to get x all by itself, I would still divide by negative 2. But recall with inequalities, if I divide by a negative number, it flips my inequality symbol the other way, so less than negative 3. Okay, so let's jump in and look at solving absolute value inequalities. So let's first look at, let's say I take the absolute value of something and I know it's greater than positive 3. So let's look at a number line. What does that mean as far as a number line goes? What values are going to be included in this absolute value? So what numbers could I take the absolute value of that would get me something greater than 3? So hopefully it's obvious that, of course, I could have values that are greater than, but not equal to 3. So I'm going to put an open circle right here because it's not equal to 3. But 4, the absolute value of 4 is definitely greater than 3. And 5 would give me something greater than 3, and so on and so forth. So I know it's all the numbers that are greater than 3. And then what else? What else could I have? If I took the absolute value of negative 1, that gives me 1. That's not greater than 3. Or negative 2, the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. That's not greater than 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3, which is not greater than 3. It's equal to 3, right? But what about the absolute value of negative 4? The absolute value of negative 4 is 4, which is definitely greater than 3. So I'm going to put an open circle here at negative 3, because that's my starting point, right? That's where it's equal. But I know if I took the absolute value of negative 4, it gives me positive 4. 4 is greater than 3. And then the absolute value of negative 5 gets me positive 5, which again is greater than 3. So I would have all the values that were less than negative 3. So I would have x is greater than 3, so just the same. Again, we're breaking it apart. Remember, that's how I get rid of the absolute value. And then all of the numbers that were less than negative 3. So when I'm dealing with an inequality, and I have the absolute value all by itself, when I break it apart, I'm going to have the same value, so x is greater than 3. Notice my absolute value goes away. And then I'm going to flip the inequality symbol and change the sign of the number. So I had x is greater than 3 and x is less than negative 3. And so for this one, this would be my solution. So let's do another example. Say I have x minus 4. So say I have this inequality right here. So remember, just like when we're solving absolute value equations, my first goal is to get the absolute value by itself. And I'll do that just like I would a regular equation. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So I get 2, absolute value of x minus 4 is less than 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5 gives me 4. And I still want the absolute value by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I get the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than 2. So now that I have the absolute value by itself, I can break it apart into my two inequalities. So I would have x minus 4 is less than 2, and x minus 4 is greater than negative 2. So solving, add 4 to both sides, and I get x is less than 6, and I get x is greater than 2. And there's my solution. So let's talk about what situation could I have where I don't have a solution. So remember, when we take the absolute value, it's distance away from 0. So the absolute value can't be a negative number. And when we looked at the equations, we knew if I had the absolute value of whatever, equal to some negative number, whatever it may be, let's say -4. I know the absolute value. When I take the absolute value, I can never get a negative number because it is distant. So I'd have no solution. So what is that going to look like as far as an inequality goes? What situation would get me no solution? So let's say I have x minus 4 is greater than -4. Is this going to give me a solution? What value could I take the absolute value of and get something greater than a negative number? Well, no matter what I take the absolute value of, it will always be greater than a negative number. So if I end up with the absolute value of something is greater than any negative number, then my solution is all real numbers, meaning all of them, right? Because it does not matter what I take the absolute value of, it will always be positive or 0. So it'll always be greater than whatever negative number I have. Well, what about the flip side of that? What if I have the absolute value of something, anything, is less than a negative number? So in this case, again, if I take the absolute value of something, it's always going to be positive or 0. So is it possible to take the absolute value and get something that's less than -4? What numbers are less than -4? I got -5, -6, -7, right? Just all negative numbers. So this situation, if I have the absolute value, remember this only counts if I have the absolute value by itself. So I have to get the absolute value alone first. Once I get the absolute value by itself, if I end up with the absolute value being less than any negative number, then I have no solution. Okay? So, I have your practice problems. Remember, practice problems need to be done in your notes. I'll be checking for it during the next notebook check for our exam. These are your practice problems. Your assignment is in the hub, and it will be due Wednesday by midnight. All right, y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.